everyone, and welcome to the Sequester Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we are here tonight to talk about what just happened on that episode of Sequester, episode 6, Date Night. Oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. Joining me here tonight is Pooya. How you doing, Pooya?
I'm doing good, Taran. I'm excited. I feel like this was the right episode for me to come talk about. I know a few of these people that were involved heavily in this episode, and I would have asked you if you wanted to go to brass tacks, but I feel like Josh might have already hit you up with the DM. So I'm gonna back out of that conversation and move right along. But I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And also with me tonight is Christen from season 3 of Sequester. How you doing, Christen?
I'm doing good. I've been waiting for a while for Taran to ask me for a date night, and this is exactly how he did it because he's super clever. But I kind of like Pooya. I think this is a really good episode to talk about. It's very loaded. It's very action-packed, and I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, this was definitely very interesting. If the previous episode felt a little like it was dragging, like it was not everything that you would want from a Sequester episode, then this one, it was the complete opposite, where we got basically every inch of what happened in this round, and every inch of it was compelling and interesting, and you had no idea where this was going to go right until the very end. Yeah. Brent is already in the chat bemoaning his lack of relevancy because Brent left the show and it just got way better right after. I don't know. Sorry, Brent.
It's 100% Brent's fault. I'm so sorry. I wanted to be your fan, Brent, but you just brought the ratings down. You weren't here for the ratings.
Oh man. So Pooya, are you with me? Are the ratings back?
Hey, the ratings back. The ratings are up. The ratings are up for me right now. They really are. I know that Mr. Ratings in the chat might be like, hey, where was I? I mean, listen, they still put you in 2 scenes, right? So that's good. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Silver linings and all that. But no, this was phenomenal. I feel like this episode was, first of all, when I saw the runtime, I was a little bit like, whoa, this is a movie. I'm about to watch a movie. I can see why. I feel like there was a lot of popcorn moments. There was a lot of storyline, a lot of strategy. I feel like we saw the story kind of start getting molded a little bit. Obviously, motives and all that come into question of, hey, was this the right move, et cetera, which we will dive into. But I feel like overall, there was a whole narrative that I could follow the whole way through, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because I didn't know where the narrative was going to end. So it was good. It was very good.
Yeah. Date night has always been, I think, a high point for the show. I think it really fits the format really well. There's just the fact that you're able to see the one-on-one conversations, especially because I feel like that's something that is often missing from Sequester, being able to see the one-on-one conversations, and you really are able to see the plot lines from start to finish, how things are happening, how the conversations are going down, what the relationships are. We're getting detailed sort of responses from like, oh, this person's having a conversation here, and I'm getting my the person's thoughts on this conversation, like, oh, this was a great conversation, or oh, this was terrible, I don't like this person, I'm just giving them what they want to hear. So I felt like it was information packed, and the cool thing about date night is that as it goes in each round, things can change. Anything can happen because you're not able to reconvene. You can have a plan that you think is going well over here, and then you hear something else toward the end of the round, and things change up. And so throughout the entire episode, it's like, well, the votes are probably here, but who knows? Things could change at the last minute, and something else could happen. And of course, then you have the drama with the battle back. Or the battle match. See, they have me now saying battle back instead of battle match because they keep calling it battle back.
Yeah,
Stop it.
that messed me up because I feel like those are 2 completely different things. I feel like the returnee comp was the battle back, and then everything else is a battle match. But yeah, no, I
Exactly.
totally agree with that.
Yeah. But the first thing we see is Spencer just digging through some empty envelopes. Sorry, bro.
He has to assume somebody has it, right? Like he hasn't mentioned like, oh, somebody has it, like somebody has to have it because he's been so unlucky. But we haven't really seen him like speculate, like, oh, like maybe this person has already gotten it. He's just been saying like, darn, like my luck sucks, and
Yeah.
he's been like chalking it up to luck. Like if I were him, I'd be looking at like Josh and Natalie, like who has it? Like
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I just like the guy that's been there the most is has zero advantages so far.
It's very funny to me. Yeah, it's not, irony's not lost in me that even the one reward for being there is that, and he's got goose egg, just wild goose chase with him.
Nothing. And so then we're going to see that that he comes back in, and we're all set to start date night. And there were a few really interesting conversations just to start the night here. The first one is Muna and Spencer, not chronologically the first one, but the first one that I want to talk about. These two have been at it for a little while, and so of course, again, the strengths of date night is that they now have an opportunity to sit down one-on-one, have a conversation, see what can happen from it. And Muna really opens up, and I feel like she really, offers him a peace offering. I don't know, a bridge. She wants to squash the beef and try to work together moving forward, which I think is a great move for Muna. She needs to do something. I don't think Muna needs to worry about who she works with. I think Muna just should work with whoever will work with her, because end game wise, she does have, somebody like Billy who's very loyal, and I think she's very, very likely to win a jury vote if she makes it there. So the fewer enemies she has, the better. And if she's able to win Spencer over, who doesn't really have many options anyway, great. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that it was a really good move for Muna. But also, I think that Muna is the type of player who she wants as little people giving her heat as possible. I don't think she ever wanted the heat from Spencer. I think that especially towards the end game, she does sort of want to like take a step back, because she realizes that like as the game goes on, the bigger threats are probably going to get targeted. And if you have someone like Spencer in the game, I definitely think it improves her odds. So I think while yes, it was good to like have a number on her side, I do think that her trying to get Spencer on her side was definitely a calculated move, just because it is Spencer. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I feel like it's a combination platter of, hey, I literally handpicked him, tethered him to Brent, knowing what was going to happen. What happened. He still survived that. Let's not let him go in and bring me out again. Maybe that'll be good. I don't want to like go after him, but I also do believe this thing she was talking about, how she's bored. Muna is somebody who knows what we want, will give us what we want, and isn't afraid to push that if she has to. I think she's in a position where she knows Spencer's got nobody. I know she knows that if for whatever reason now he ends up at the end, because he's still battling, if my rapport with him is built and better, he might think of a duality story of like, look, I'm the opposite of him, he's the opposite of me, let us get to the end, let us work this out, this could help me. If he doesn't put my name out there, that's good. I do think she realizes that Spencer literally has no choice. And I think part of the speech that Spencer gave at the beginning of the whole, well, first of all, the whole like, I'm fed up with this game, it's like, well, you in here now. But the whole him saying that he wants to actually try and do something, she was like, listen, here's some breadcrumbs, you're my first conversation of the day, run with it. And if it trickles back to me, I'll know exactly where your cause is. But I think ultimately she knows that he's always going to be there as the backup anyway. So if she wants to try her hand at something else, he's just there as a second option regardless for a vote. So she's going to be fine either way. Just build team building for her.
Yeah. And, again, like you might as well try, and you have the time to do it. So I think that, I kind of felt like the leaking of information in the sense that she was like, oh, what about the 3 people that haven't been in battle matches? And then she was like, let me see if that gets back to me. I think the fault in that strategy is that even when it did get back to her, she was like, well, was it malicious though? Right? Like it didn't really give her much information, and it shouldn't, because that's just Spencer. Spencer can't hold on to anything. And it's not necessarily malicious. Spencer's just gonna, if you give him anything, he's going to regurgitate it back out. It's just going to happen. It's just you said apples. Well, apples then. You know, like it's just gonna happen. And so I feel like the move is to give him as little as possible, and I think that's what she was going for here. But by naming, you know, Marcelo and Brendan, two people who would definitely be put off by the fact that she named them, I feel like it was definitely a little bit more risky than perhaps necessary. But overall, I think she did a really good job of changing Spencer's mind, especially because, I mean, he'd been burned by her over and over and over and over by the same thing. And the fact that she's able to win him over here and be like, nah, but this time, us. And he's really won over by this idea that, like, hey, we're the threats, you know, me, you, we're on the same level. And Spencer's like, yeah, you know, I'm winning all these battle matches. I mean, Spencer, I think, is looking at himself like Bobby and Ovi were looking at Spencer in the previous episode. And who knows? Maybe they're all right. Maybe I'm wrong. But
you're right. You're right. Come on. You're right.
I sort of think that there's a little bit of a flaw in them not like locking on a specific name, because we see as the dates go on that it becomes divided between Marcelo and Brendan. And if it wasn't so divided, at the end of the day, Muna wouldn't have gotten the majority of votes because it could have tied. So I think that maybe it wasn't necessary for Muna to say a name, but I do think that like Spencer could have easily said a name, and definitely in hindsight, Muna probably should have said a name so that they were all on the same page. But I think that she wanted to be careful, and it was probably a little bit too careful because it ended up sending her home. But she didn't know she was going to go home, so I don't think it was an error in her logic.
Yeah, I mean, the trade-off with date night is this is a great opportunity to make bonds with people. But if you spend time doing bonding and long-term planning and not enough time coming up with the plan for this round, then you're leaving yourself open to whatever is going to happen this round, right? And these early plans are definitely big. They don't always pan out, but they are the ones that start to spread. And as I think we all know in Sequester, you know, these things get rolling and they get momentum on them. And once the names come out, those are the names that are being talked about. And so it is very important to make sure that there is some kind of plan in action. Is Spencer the right person to build that plan with? Probably not, right? So it's kind of a bad draw for Muna in that regard. But there's another very important conversation. This one is going to be between Jacob and Natalie. Pooya, I've been waiting to get your take on this on a podcast. A few episodes ago, Jacob was talking about his second win, and he was saying something along the lines of, it wasn't shit!
Mm-hmm. Yep, I made a whole song about it. I remixed it. I used all sound clips of Jacob himself, so I have no lyrics in this. I heard it loud and clear. He knows it. He said it. I'm glad to be here to talk about his game. This conversation was phenomenal.
Just for those that may not be aware, Jacob won his second Sequester minigame in a jury vote against our man here, Pooya.
4-3.
Robbed.
Thank you, Taran. I'll never forget the way you backed me that game, and that will always be remembered. And I feel good. I feel good about everything. Here's the thing. Obviously, I'm like out here watching him, be like, "Hey, listen. If you took a win over me, you better be doing good. You better be doing a good job, because I'm not about to lose to some dummy." Let's talk about the move. Let's talk about the game today. Here's the thing. I thought Natalie and Jacob, what you said about this is kind of like a game of telephone, this date night. Mm-hmm. It's important to get that name out early. With a game of telephone, things can get mistranslated as you go along. It's important to keep that one main thing solid as the common denominator in every conversation, and that's the target. And they quickly come up with what they want to do, and that is Muna, right? They're both on the same page. I think we've seen this Jacob and Natalie relationship grow for like 3 episodes ago. Like even little by little, they're still working with each other. They're not really on like a same alliance or anything, but they're just working together. I think Natalie is killing it. I did not expect Natalie at all when I didn't know who Natalie was watching the first episode. Natalie is doing a phenomenal job. She gets out of this episode hands free, nothing happened, moving into the background, another round, you're ready to go. The other side of the coin, in Jacob, gets what he wanted, but I think is going to have a bit of a hill to climb now. Ultimately, I think this date night, this specific date was the most important date for how the rest of the episode gets set out.
Oh, for sure. One of the things so there are a couple of different sort of themes throughout the episode. One of them is the editing theme of, it's sort of like this old timey sort of thing. I liked it. I liked the old timey voiceover, the sort of black and white flickering thing. It worked. It worked well for this. The other theme for me was, and you know, we've talked about this, I think, on the podcast before, but the confessionals, they take place after the round. And so sometimes you can try to read into what might have happened based on the demeanor of the person in the confessionals. And throughout the entire episode, Jacob Jones in the confessional is like, so I was trying to get Muna's trust with doing this. And it's just like, what is going to happen to cause him? They're like, either it succeeds and it's so heartbreaking and brutal that he can't even bring himself to have any sort of enthusiasm, or it fails miserably and he's devastated about it. And I was like, and it turns out it was both.
Yeah. It's
but it adds
lot.
this looming threat of just disaster to the episode, that like there's this thing building up and something is gonna blow.
You never really know what it is, just because of the nature of the choices of the battle match. Like, anybody could have gone home, and maybe they just, whoever went home called out Jacob. So I think while I definitely noticed like the hey, like this is what, like the monotone, like depressed Jacob tone, but like I had no clue what it meant. And so it definitely reeled me in. What did everybody think of his strategy of saying, oh, it was me or Muna? It was me or Muna. What did you guys think of that?
So I think he displayed the capability of executing a plan really well. He planted the seeds early. He's the one who threw his own name in the conversation. I think in the next round, I think with Billy, he kind of starts inceptioning the whole Brandon was involved in saying my name. That's where I've been hearing it come from. So he does all this great. So if anything, I'm not going to argue about like the fact that he can't execute strategy, because he can. He set out what he wanted to do. Do I think it was a mistake for him to do what he did? Yes, because I think he did a lot because he had a lot of ammo, but he wasn't in the line of fire. He had no reason to shoot the bullets. You could have just saved the bullets for later. And I think he blew a big load right out the gate here, and it's going to make it tough for him to pick those arrows out of the target now that he shot them all. So I think that, to sum myself up right here, good. I mean, you made a move. It was bold strategy. You executed what you wanted to do, and that shows your ability to pull off a move. However, I think bad move for you ultimately.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things to admire in this move, especially in the short term, in terms of like how effective it was in getting the vote onto Muna. But I think there were a couple. It was such an ambitious move. And in order to pull it off, required a lot of things to go right. And I think there were a couple of things that went wrong. I love the idea of throwing out his own name as the alternative to Muna. Because if his name is out there, first of all, nobody's going to feel comfortable throwing a vote onto Jacob if they feel like Jacob is a vote option. Because then they're going to be worried that if I throw a vote on Jacob, that might cause it to be a majority. I can't risk that. I'll have to throw my vote onto somebody else. So I like it in that sense, especially when 2 or 3 votes can carry the day. And then it does, I think, provide a decent layer of it was me or Muna. And I had to do what I had to do. But I think where this fell flat for Jacob is that, first of all, nobody else involved in the plan had the same vision as him. Like Natalie cared about getting out Muna. Marcelo cared about like doing his Marcelo thing. Nobody was really involved in making sure the plan worked in the way that it was supposed to, right? So when Natalie's talking to other people, she's not saying, I'm hearing Jacob or Muna, I would prefer Muna. She's saying, here's the move on Muna. And I think that was to some degree intentional because she wants this to be her move, not Jacob's move. And so she doesn't want it to be like, here are the two options. I picked this one. She wants to be like, I want to make a move on Muna. And there's not a lot of room for the Jacob storyline in that. And when Natalie's not talking about Jacob as a potential vote option, you're losing one of the most valuable sources of information to corroborate your story that I was one of the options. And then when, Marcelo is out there, he's not talking about Jacob at all either. He's not talking about, I've heard Jacob. He's not saying Jacob's in trouble, I need to pick Jacob. He's just talking again about Muna. And so Jacob's talking about Jacob, but nobody is backing him up on it. And so it just doesn't feel believable at all. Second thing I think Jacob does wrong is he goes over the top in his conversations with Billy and Muna. When he tells Billy, look, if it comes down to me or Muna, I want you to vote to keep Muna. I want to keep Muna in the game. I feel like he needed to cut that in half. I feel like he needed to say, look, I think it might come down to me or Muna. If it does, then I'm okay with you voting to keep Muna. Like, I'm going to fight for myself, of course, but, like, I'm not going to hold it against you if you vote to keep Muna. I feel like that is the more sort of believable angle, and it gives him a little more, just, like, deniability in terms of, like, he doesn't need to say, because I want Muna to stay here more than I do. Like, I would want Muna to stay. Because that's, and I don't think he said those exact words, but that was definitely the message of what he was saying. And he says something similar to Muna, where it's like, I would want you to stay, if it's down to the two of us. And like, that's the message they're receiving, that like, oh, so you're falling under your, it's a little bit Tyler in Big Brother 22, right? Like, just a little bit like, ooh, I think you may have implied something that I'm not sure that you entirely meant to imply. And it went a little bit further than it was supposed to. And I think that's really going to hurt his, again, deniability at the end of the episode here.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it worked at the time because Muna ended up telling Jacob about the LOS, which in my mind, I'm like, I don't know how anybody could do that. I feel like if I found an LOS, like I'd be doing everything in my power to keep it a secret. But I think the reason that it did fail was sort of because Natalie and Marcelo didn't back up the narrative, like you said, that Jacob was the other vote. And so that really, I guess, eventually when Muna did go home, Billy and Muna realized that like Jacob did not have to do that. And I think that's why they were so upset with the over the top behavior. Whereas if Jacob got away scot-free, I think they probably would have bought it. That's just my opinion on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Pooya?
I think that, like, my whole thing with Jacob here is that, if I'm playing, let me put myself in his shoes. Let me play devil's advocate. This all goes back to the fact that I think in Jacob's mind, Muna cast the first stone. When Muna gets picked in that round to go in the battle match and she brings up Jacob's name when there's like 8 other people, I think he took it as a big like backstab because, doesn't matter what anyone says, like, we've been friends, we've been talking through all these things. I mean, the dude won his game because Muna stumped for him in the final jury against me, and he gets that win. So like, they have a bond that no one else really has in that. So for his name to come up, he doesn't care A, B, C, or D. You said my name. So I think that was still stuck in his head, and he had to get his revenge. And I think he went in deep. Like, this wasn't just a game. Like, he straight up was like, I'm going to go with the emotions on this. Muna's guard was completely down in that conversation. She tells him about she only told her LOS thing to Billy and to Jacob. And I think that Billy's whole narrative, we've learned Billy is a person who goes off vibes. If you've passed the vibe check, you're in my book. If you pass the vibe check, I'm riding with you. And I think Jacob did a phenomenal job of making her believe this energy of like, Jacob was like, I'll be the martyr. I'll be the Enrique Iglesias for Muna if it needs to be. You save her, I will die for her. But then that's all well and good. And then when we get to the end and the vote is like, well, you voted for her, then it's a little bit like, because I think his whole thing was, indeed, let me make it so that so many people say my name that it's like, well, it was me or her. I had to throw my vote. Like, I can't vote myself. I'm not a clown. I think if he made it seem like, hey, I'm not trying to be low on, I'm not trying to be an idiot here, that would have worked better. But given the fact that there were so many names in the rotation as well, and his name was probably not as big of gathering as much steam as the others, that doesn't help there, because literally his name is being mentioned, Muna's name, and then the 3 non-battle match people are being mentioned. That's 5 people. That's 5 options. You could literally throw your vote anywhere else, not have to do it on Muna. So that was very hard to make work. That's what I'm saying, is that he did very well on building the narrative he wanted to build. He did very well on using the emotional relationships he has to convince them of something. And he could have gotten away with it if not for the fact that it just kind of got all messy at the end there.
Not for those meddling kids.
Yeah, do indeed.
And that really was like, I think we'll definitely talk about the moment where the vote is revealed and the pick for the battle match and then the repick for the battle match. But I think there were some small mistakes there potentially as well. But I do want to emphasize, though, there's so much of this that is very right and done so well, and watching it play out in the way that it did was really, really fun to watch. And like you see the plan, and it is so good. It's just so ambitious that like he does fall a bit short here, but it's like, it's so admirable, the attempt at something like this, and that he came so close. And so him and Natalie, they orchestrate this. I also love this from Natalie, who has been, working her way in with Jacob, who is about to be approached with another 3-person thing, is all of a sudden really coming into her own in this game in terms of the power that she's being able to wield. And she wants to make sure that she doesn't get stuck in a Jess situation from last season where people didn't really see what she did or respect enough of what she did. And so she wants some heads on her mantle. She wants some moves to her name. And this is going to be at least, either the start of it or at least, something that she did, right? So she's also going to very, very much impress me here. And I think ultimately, because her plan was a lot less ambitious in terms of its scope, she's definitely going to come out looking better than Jacob, because she didn't reach quite as high for those stars. Jacob the Icarus here. So another conversation that we see early on is Josh and Brendan, and this is going to sort of prompt this idea of a potential 3-person thing. Obviously, this is not going to have much legs for the game here, because Brendan is short-lived in this alliance, but it may potentially lead toward a Natalie Josh connection lingering on, which is definitely interesting to me, because Josh and Jacob, I think, are definitely 2 of the people who have the most amount of connections to others, and the fact that they're both leaning toward Natalie is very interesting to me. And it seems like they might start to clash eventually, because Josh even mentioned like Jacob's got to go at some point. But they talk about wanting Spencer out. Spencer, because he's the easy vote. Get out Spencer. He's never gonna pick us. Perfect. Do the same thing. That's what we want to do. They talk about this alliance, this 3-person alliance. I think this is a perfect plan for them, but they're never really going to get much traction here for it, Kristen.
No, I think that this was the perfect move for them, because I think in Sequester, the ultimate goal is not be pulled into the battle match. And I don't think that Spencer would have pulled any of them in. I think the only reason it does fail is that initial Muna and Spencer conversation, because when Muna goes and talks to other people, she's saying, yeah, like I like talked to Spencer, like we sort of like made up, and then Spencer was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to vote Muna out. And I think because they told that to other people, they started to realize, wait, who is Spencer going to pull into that battle match? Because if it's not Muna, it could be anybody. And I think that's why the plan ultimately failed. But I do think that if Spencer left, it ultimately would have been the best move for their game. But Spencer and Muna definitely ruined that plan. But by being open to not dragging each other. So yeah.
Yeah.
I agreed initially that Spencer was the move, but then the more and more Josh kept talking about it, he kept talking about this whole thing with like the narrative that's been painted. He believed that Spencer was going to pick a man this time. So then my question was Josh under the belief that that pick would have been, who would have that pick been then, if that is truly the direction it would have gone? Because then isn't it technically the two of them are in the pool of 4 to be selected? I mean, I felt decent about it not being Josh should that have happened anyways, but I just thought that was interesting because I felt like the more and more we got into the later round, I was like, are you sure? Like, are you convincing us that you don't want to do this? I couldn't tell with him. I really couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, considering like the direction that Josh goes with his vote, it makes me wonder if he would have thrown his vote at the last second if he felt like it was Spencer, just like he did with Muna, or if he just felt like, okay, I don't think Spencer is necessarily going to pick a woman this time, but that doesn't mean that he's going to pick me. Like maybe he's going to pick Marcelo or something like, which I think he would have, right? Like if he did pick a guy, I think it would have been Marcelo. Marcelo was the name that he was saying the most throughout the round. So I think he probably felt pretty good, regardless of whether or not, you know, Spencer was going to stick to what he had done in the past. But what I really I liked hearing this thought process from Josh, because I was having the same thought, and I was like, you guys think that Spencer's going to keep picking the same type over and over, but that doesn't mean that he is going to. And you know, people are often smarter than you think they are, and he knows the rep he's getting. He knows he needs to do something to change it. There's a very good chance that he would pick somebody else, especially now he's kind of feeling very invincible. He's kind of feeling, I can beat anyone. I don't need to pick the weaker players, as he said earlier in the season. So. I liked what Josh was doing here. I feel like Josh did a great job of bonding with the people he talked to, and really like rolling with the punches when he was hearing, like, he was not hearing Spencer's name. He was like, I guess the Spencer thing's not working. All right, I'm starting to see, and he was able to predict where the vote was going to go, and he was able to put his vote somewhere where it wouldn't matter. And you know, if Muna ends up going, great for me. My hands are clean. If she doesn't end up going, great for me. She's pissed off at people that aren't me. And I thought he played this round really well, comes out of it with a lot of allies still intact. Definitely was impressed here by Josh.
Can we talk about Josh's social play at the beginning of every date? So are we fucking or what? I thought that it was like a really brilliant social move, actually, because I feel like when you walk into those dates, you're almost like super tense, like, oh my God, like, what are they going to say? And then when Josh opens up with that, I feel like it sort of like relieves anxiety from other people and helps them sort of open up to him really quickly. So I think he was doing a little more than just being funny with using that line. I think there was some social strategy to it.
Yeah.
It's the perfect icebreaker. I mean, the guy says it, you completely are now disarmed. You're like, hey, let me hear what this clown is saying. But he's like my friend clown, and then you guys talk, and then you break down strategy. He's good at explaining his thoughts. He's good at explaining his motives. I feel like he's someone who's proven to be, I think the only time he seemed deceptive to the other players is at the beginning of the game when he went looking for an LOS, right? That one time. Ever since, everyone that talks to him on an individual basis feels very comfortable with him, wants to work with him. I think he benefits from the fact that he was kind of seen as someone who was an outcast in the beginning, because no one's looking at him as like, ooh, he's definitely a front runner. I definitely have to look at him. Like, he's not even being brought up in the name of threats here, right? So I think he's in a very good spot. And I think he is someone who is socially capable of executing conversation without coming off intimidating, without coming off aggressive on his agenda, and without coming off as deceptive or fake, which a lot of other people were getting that kind of title during these date nights. He did very well. He did very well. Josh is good.
It's a textbook example of really using the role that he had in the beginning of the game, which was an unfortunate role for him, being an outcast, using that to his fullest advantage, and really sneaking up there. Like, everybody was looking at Josh like, hey, he's got nobody. Everyone voted him out. But I have a good relationship with Josh, so I can pick him up. Like, like you're picking up a different Josh from Big Brother, right? Like, there's the same concept, different players. The problem is that Josh isn't Josh from Big Brother. He's actually more of a, I don't know, nobody else from that season, right? Um, but because of that, like a lot of people feel like I've got Josh, when in reality, he's got a lot of people, and he's got a lot of options, and that's going to, I think, surprise a lot of people. Now, that is, I think, part of the issue with this kind of play from him is that he will need to make sure he wins the respect of the jury by the end of the game. I don't think he's made any moves that qualify as his,
Right.
and I think a lot of people do still see him as a lower tier player, which is helping him at the moment, but will definitely start to get into some murky waters toward the end of the game. He needs to either be very careful about who he gets to the end with, or he'll need to step up his game and really show off some of the power that he's accumulated.
And I think if anybody's likely to do that, it will be Josh, because I think Josh has proven that when he's put inside of a pressure cooker, that he's willing to be sort of like bold and confident and just sort of make a statement, like during the first round when he said, boom, I'm like, you challenge me, JOS, boom, I'm gonna pick you. And I think that sort of proved that if he's in that pressure cooker situation where he feels like he needs to make moves towards the end of the game, I think he will do it. But that is sort of reliant on the fact that he's not like blindsided or just taken out super suddenly as the rounds progress. So I think he could do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think looking at Brendan is a decent way of sort of comparing the two games, because Brendan is also a player that came in very few connections, had to sort of operate from a similar spot of working from the outside in. And he was doing a good job of it as well. He was really riding the middle. Nobody was saying his name. Nobody was picking him for battle matches. But I think Brendan in this round found himself in a spot where the lack of agency, he was doing great at keeping himself safe, but the lack of agency really started to hurt him because he was not able to shape the game in his favor. And the same thing is true of Josh, but Josh is doing a little bit better in terms of making connections and rolling with the punches so far. But that doesn't mean that he can necessarily escape the same fate. I talk about this all the time, but in games like this, I often look at it like, they're on a runway, and at some point you need to take off from the runway, and you're going to run out of space eventually. And I think unless you're the person in control, right? The person in control, they want to keep everything level. They want to keep it straight and right down the path. And everyone else needs to get the ship off this runway, get it somewhere else. And Josh is going to run out of runway, I think, unless something changes. And I think he's definitely capable of changing something. But there are definitely some big players in here that are going to be tough to beat for Josh. And people like Jacob, people like Muna, and can he maneuver around these people, and can he make his way to the end in a winning position? That's going to be interesting to watch if he's capable of it. So, Brendan, this round, again, starts off with the Spencer thing. Unlike Josh, Brendan is going to stick hard to this Spencer idea, right? Where Josh hears that Spencer is not really being talked about, that, Muna and Brendan and Marcelo are names that are being thrown out. Spencer's not one of these names. He's like, okay, Spencer's not happening. I need to readjust. I need to reposition. Brendan is like, but Spencer, it's such a good move. Come on, let's do this. And he gets stuck on that, and he's not able to sort of like reposition and readjust. And that is going to definitely be a cause of not necessarily his downfall exactly in this round, but if Brendan operates a little bit differently, maybe puts his vote somewhere else or something along those lines, it's possible we could have seen maybe a tie. Maybe Moon is not voted out. Maybe something else could have happened. Maybe he's not pulled into a battle match. Who knows? But definitely did not have the same level of flexibility here, Pooya.
No, I think it comes down to I felt this last episode with him where, very rightfully, if someone mentions my name, I'm going to be like, well, I'm not working with you, right? But he gave me this energy of every time anything deviates from what he thinks is going to happen, it's like the system crashes, he complete hard resets, and he's like, I need a new name right now. I just need a new one right now. I don't know what to do. Like, we've seen it time and time again with him, where it's like everything's smooth, he's chill. It's very clear that he's got decent social game in the sense that people get along with him and they enjoy talking with him. He's a decent vibe. He has good vibes. But once his name got mentioned, he's like just a bull in a china shop. Doesn't know the first name he can attach himself to, he'll go in. That conversation with Spencer later on, where Spencer's like explaining we need to keep the threats in, and he's like, "Oh, Muna's okay. Let's go, Muna." He's like, "Dude, we're not. I just said not Muna." Like he can't help himself. He's that guy. If I may make one, I'll make only one Among Us reference here. Then we'll move on. He's the guy who's just like, oh, you think it's me? Then I think it's you, and just votes without thinking, and now the imposters can win. Like, he's that guy. So it's a problem, because in a game like this, you need to be cool, calm, and collected, just like you've been in these social situations. You're the chill guy. You're seen as the chill guy. Kind of, you're getting looked at as the surfer bro. Just be relaxed. Once you lose the relaxation and you're out here trying to like go hard in the paint when there's not much information out, you're gonna be in trouble. And I do think he suffered from this, because you could see as the rounds went over, by the time he got to that last, he's like, there's nothing here. I don't know what to do. I just have to figure something out. It's like, relax, and you might be able to compose yourself. You'll be okay.
Yeah. Can we also just talk about how in like, I feel like at least half of the shots, half of the setups, there's just a big bed behind them. What's up with that?
That's for Josh's after date party.
But Josh was in the same spot like the whole round, and he had no bed.
Oh yeah, that is very true. They put him in the wrong room, I guess.
Like
ambiance, though.
What was your favorite room?
My favorite room. I mean, I feel like it was Josh's room. I just loved watching Josh just sit there the whole round in the same spot, asking the same questions.
Yeah, sit there, like forward lean with his arm on the table and his like really intense eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Josh looks like he's about to be like, hey, listen, so we ordered the nachos like 15 minutes ago. When are they gonna get here? Like, he's got that set up, because there was that one, there was the fireplace, and then there was the one with the bed behind them. I do think the bed one ranks last, because if you're looking at the seating, I feel like the bed one, especially if it was someone you're not really comfortable in the game with, it kind of made it a little bit like, we're not quite here yet. Like, I'm not quite comfortable sitting in the same seat as you. But with the dining table, it's like, doesn't matter what level of friendship you have. Like, if you're feeling comfortable, you do the lean forward like Josh is doing with Billy. But if you're someone you don't really know, you can kind of lean back in the chair and like keep the distance. I feel like it does help. I feel like it kind of does help depending on where you are, because like obviously the one by the bed, you've got Jacob and Muna who are coming through with the friendship. That's hugs, that's close proximity. When Spencer and Muna were sitting there at the beginning, especially, it was like your parents like being mad at you. Like, this was not a good time being had by anybody. But yeah, I did notice the bed.
I just like Kristen, have you ever had a first date with a bed right next to where you're sitting? Just like, hey, let's just first date, get to know each other. Here's the bed right here. Just
I feel like inviting someone to your bedroom for the first thing anyways just gonna have like very
it's neither of the people's bedroom. This is a neutral ground, but
like
there also is a bed there.
Like at Bed Bath and Beyond. No, I've definitely never had a first date there. That sounds a little interesting.
If Billy was here, she would say, listen, the energies don't match. Like, this isn't a vibe. I'm not down with this. This is not gonna happen.
What are you trying to tell? It's like the subliminal messaging for what you want later that night without actually like telling them what you want, like Josh would. So.
That's what I felt like Audrey was trying to hint at, like, give us some action, guys. There's a bed right there.
That would have made for some interesting TV, but nobody took the shot. So
I mean, I still remember last season she made somebody cuddle. Was it Jess and Hunter or something? I don't know.
I think it was the 7 Deadly Sins round, where like they had to like hug or something during one of the rounds, or like spoon in the bed, and Erica had the bad breath.
Yeah, like somebody had to just like cuddle, like if they wanted to talk to anybody, they had to cuddle the whole time.
It was like sloth, or I can't remember what the 7 Deadly Sins were. I hope that twist comes back next episode. I really like the 7 Deadly Sins, so that could be something we see, and we can see more cuddling in that episode.
I mean, Chekhov's bed right now, in my opinion. Those beds are coming back.
It could be foreshadowing the next episode, and that's like the sole purpose of putting the bed in the background. It could be foreshadowing that 7 Deadly Sin episode. So
yeah. All right. So we're also going to see Billy and Marcelo. I don't recall anything too, they have like Marcelo's going to change his plans. Billy's going to change her plans when they get to talking to other people. So the plans are going to start spreading. Jacob and Natalie are going to start spreading the Muna plan. They're eventually going to link up with Marcelo, who hears Muna, Jacob's on board, I'm on board. Those are ultimately the 3 votes that stay locked in, that will be the votes to take Muna out of the game. But there's more to this that is very key to making sure that Muna leaves, and that is convincing Muna to put her vote on Brendan, and convincing Billy as well. But Billy is ultimately going to throw her vote at the last minute because, of course. But that's the plan. They get those 3 votes. There a couple of people are talking about Marcelo. Muna at first is on Marcelo. Spencer's on Marcelo. Muna is going to link up with Jacob, and Jacob is going to convince her that Brendan should be the name. Brendan is the one throwing out her name, his name. It should be Brendan. The idea is to get Muna to pick Brendan for the battle match. Now, I don't know exactly what he was thinking in terms of like what happens when Muna reveals Brendan's vote. Because surely she'll do that before she picks him for the battle match. Like, again, I thought the plan was to actually get Brendan to vote for one of them. Like to actually have Jacob's name out there, actually have him vote, maybe even for Jacob. And then if she calls out Brendan's name and Brendan says, oh, I voted for Jacob, it's like, oh, well, there were votes on Jacob, and he just, Jacob managed to get enough votes on Muna to make it not him. But when Brendan votes for Spencer and he's mind blown, he's just like, I voted for Spencer. Like it's like, okay, so this is just nonsense then. Like the plan completely falls apart at that point.
Yeah, in one complete second. Honestly, that reveal really literally like that 1 minute is when all the hard work just did not pay off at all. Obviously we'll get to talking about all that, but yeah, I just think that here, unless he puts a vote through on one of them, then doing such a good job of getting the vote going that way without anyone knowing, you cannot dictate how people are going to react to stuff. And if they're completely blindsided, they're going to have big reactions, like it happened right then and there when Muna got announced.
Yeah, and I think this was, again, just like the lack of assist here. It really needed to be Natalie and Marcelo selling to Brendan. The vote is Jacob or Muna. Make your pick, because it's not going to be Spencer. And, then, I guess you could try to make the argument that, like, he just threw his vote. He was the one orchestrating it, but he threw his vote. But it's not like we heard that argument, right? So that's happening there. Spencer is immediately going to start leaking everything Muna told him. You had a conversation with Muna. What did she say? Well, here's what she said. Great, thanks. And it's going to come back around to Muna. Now, I did like that Muna did not react strongly to this. She was like, okay, can't trust him with information, but that doesn't mean that I can't trust him in the game. Because as we talked about before, it wasn't malicious. And she basically hears that from Billy after as well. Like, oh, I don't think Spencer meant anything. I don't think he was trying to throw you under the bus. It was more just like, this is what we talked about. We didn't really land on a name. And so I think like that, again, is key. I think if Muna wants to, have any kind of ability to control a vote or survive a round without some kind of power, I feel like Spencer might be one of her only options moving forward, but that remains to be seen at this point. But the fact that she is still open to this Spencer idea, even though he failed the test, I think is actually a big strength of hers as a player.
I don't know why the test was really a thing, because I feel like if you're Spencer and you want to work with Muna, you're going to go to Billy and like talk good about Muna and say like, hey, like Muna wants to work with me. Like, why don't we all just like work together? And I feel like if anything, I feel like if Muna heard that Spencer was talking like positively to Billy about Muna, that Muna should have been like, great, like maybe Spencer agrees with me. I don't know why it was a negative thing that they talked about that. So that sort of confused me, but I definitely agree with everything else.
Mm-hmm. So as we go, there was a very interesting conversation to me. First of all, when Muna talks about Marcelo, I'm pretty sure this was Muna that mentioned it. She brings up the fact that he showed up to the battle match selection in flip-flops. This guy is so confident. He showed up in flip-flops to the battle match selection. And I'm just like, oh no, he was just trying to show off his feet. He's so proud of them, remember? They just wanted to show off the work he's had done on the feet. It's they were Chekhov's feet, and now it's coming back to haunt him here, Pooya.
I love this so much. This kind of observation, like the being able to gather information and utilize it effectively, is Muna's strength, and this is phenomenal. I love that she notices this. I feel like it is the perfect example of what game Marcelo's playing. Everyone else is wearing the proper footwear. He pulls up in flip-flops. Like it is the comfort level that he is showing, and I think that she completely sees right through this. And I love seeing this because I missed it completely. So I loved getting this from her, and it made perfect sense. This was awesome. This was awesome.
I just love that this was this is like if during Big Brother 22, like the final 3 HOH, Enzo lost because he wasn't wearing shoes, and it's like, oh, the foot thing came back. He needed to show off his feet to his foot stalker, and now it cost him the challenge. It's relevant.
What if that's foreshadowing of a future battle match where Marcelo shows up and he's in his flip-flops and he shows up to the battle match and he's just like, oh, because it's like something super, super physical. I think that'd be really, really funny.
But guys, my feet looked great in the flip-flops, right? Like, come on. Marcelo has another interesting interaction here where he has a conversation with Natalie, and he's like, first of all, great dress and or skirt. It's like, okay. And then, so she talks to him about taking out Muna. She's the one that gets to him about the plan first. And his response is, I'm so proud of her. Look at her coming in, like playing the game. She's grown so much. Like, I'm just so proud, and I was just so impressed. And I was just like, wow, like Natalie really...
Someone says anything, I'll bite them.
Yeah.
I'll bite them if they say anything.
Right? Like, she really like charmed the snakes off of the flip-flops off of Marcelo, and it did feel very condescending.
Oh yeah, not a little bit. This was so much like, look at her grow, look at her go. It's like, Marcelo, where do you think you are in this race? Like, where do you think you land on the scale, homeboy? Like, I recognize. So here's the thing. From what I've gathered, what I've learned, he's the active player. He had been before this game. Like, he's someone who's involved. He's someone who's good. He's obviously, Jacobs picked him as like the heir to his throne or whatever. But when I hear all this stuff, when I see all this stuff, and I see like what Billy said about him, where Billy's like he was just completely fake to me. There's a bunch of other people that feel the same way. I'm like, Marcelo, guy, like, this strategy was great for round 2 and 3 when you're supposed to schmooze people. It's round 6 of the game. Wake up and play the game. Like, you like speaking compliments to Natalie, like, this is helping nothing. Like, you need to, if anything, realize that, hey, Natalie had nobody in the game, started 200 meters behind me, is now 400 meters ahead of me, and I'm still here in my flip-flops, not stretching for the race. Like, move faster, and vault the thoughts. You gotta move. It was, I couldn't believe the way he was saying, because he was saying it so earnestly in the confessional to me that I'm like, Marcelo really buying what he's selling. The problem is no one else thinks he's in business at all, so no one's buying anything else.
Yeah.
He said that about someone else too, and I can't remember who it was, but I know he said like, welcome to Sequester, like twice, and I don't remember who the other is, but I think
It was with Brandon at the end, right? When he's like, your real form is showing. Your real form is showing. Right before he went into the battle match. I feel like he had that as well.
Okay, yeah. I think Marcelo's mistake was he thought it was a foot race, and he clearly thought he was going to win if it was a foot race. So,
got those feet. Natalie has a few great moments in this episode. I really loved when she was talking to Brendan, and she's like, I'm just not impressed at anything that he is telling me. Like, Brendan, I'm out of your league in this game. Like,
that was so good.
Yeah. It's like, oh, got him. And again, because they are all underestimating Natalie. Like, you know, I think that, like, because I think that watching the show, hearing her confessionals, I think we even talked about this in episode 2 when she talked about it. Like, you can tell that, like, she's a gamer. She just wasn't in a position to do anything because of the circumstances that she found herself in. And now that she has been able to slowly crawl her way in, similar to Josh, she is finding herself with a little bit of wiggle room to make some moves. And Christen, I talked about how she reminded me of you in episode 2, and this is probably the trajectory you kind of hoped you would be able to attain in your season.
Don't remind me. I haven't been able to look at a cinder block since.
Oh, no.
Even like a ping pong ball. Someone's like, want to do beer pong? Nope. Don't even see
Ruined.
it. There's all those memories. But yeah, no, I definitely like Natalie's trajectory. And I wonder how people in the jury perceive her, because we've heard like a lot of people, we've like heard her thoughts, and we've like seen her like push the move, but I'm wondering if she can seal the deal, because even if it's obvious to us, I know from playing Sequester that the reason that those under the radar games like sometimes don't go detected is the pace of the game. People don't really have time to like meditate and like think on people's games. So I'm hoping, like, yes, this was a good move, but I'm hoping that she gets recognized for her Muna move next round. So we're gonna have to see if people realize what she did, and if they do, I think she has a real shot.
Yeah. I feel like, if I may real quick, Taran, I feel like it's interesting to me this season's particular, because when we came in, when this cast gets released, you're looking at, oh my God, these 3 people know each other. This person's friends with this person. There were like a handful of people that really had no real connections coming in. We've kind of figured them out, right? There's Josh, there's Natalie, I believe, Brandon is kind of falling into that a little bit, right? So, but what's interesting is that initially you look at it and it's a big disadvantage. You don't know anybody. There's this big block of people who are literally friends, literally talking often. But people like Josh, people like Natalie are showing they have the game capabilities down pat. What they benefit from as being newbies is there are no expectations on who they're going to be aligned with. So, i.e., look at Jacob and Muna, and there is no one you are tethered to because you know them. There's no expectations there. You don't have to ride with someone who's going to be bad for your game. You don't have a tether target that people are looking at you like, these 2 are a pair, we need to break them up. They're in a good position where if they get their footing in a little bit and they build the bonds there live, they can benefit from it, because when all these tensions arise in these pre-existing relationships and people are starting to look at other options, hi, my name's Natalie. You might not know me, but I'm going to be a good asset for your game. And oh, by the way, I'll run with the move you're doing, and 100% like this is a good move for you, but I'm going to silently gain all the benefits and then not have any problems. And then the fallout that comes from here, I might be able to ride the wave all the way to the end. That is a great place to be. And that, honestly, I think when you look at this, we got to remember from now on, when people think, oh my God, but this group has a pre-existing relationship, the other people are not going to get drafted, draft your Natalies and Joshes next time, because look at what they've been able to do with so little out the gate.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part here will be that this was definitely a co-authored move here by Natalie, but Jacob very publicly took a lot of public heat for this, right? So I think it's going to be important how Natalie crafts this narrative, or how it gets told, right?
Right.
Because we hear from Muna, and she's like, who is the 3rd or 4th vote, right? She's naming Josh. She's naming Spencer. Like, the only person she doesn't name is Natalie. Because, guys, they're from the same city. There's just no chance that they would ever vote each other out. But because of that, you know, Muna's not going to know that this was Natalie. And it might be a while before somebody gets to jury who did know that Natalie was involved in any way. You know, with Brendan heading there, he didn't know. If Muna somehow goes next, or Billy goes next, they don't seem to know at the moment. And so, for a while, this could be seen as Jacob's move. And at the same time, does she want credit for this move? Because ultimately it kind of failed. But I do think there's a lot of upside here for Natalie, specifically because it failed. Because it failed so dramatically onto Jacob, if the jury is thinking Jacob made a move and he failed, and they don't realize that Natalie had a part in it, and then eventually, like Marcelo or somebody who knows that this came from Natalie comes into the jury and they're like, oh no, Natalie was really pushing that one. If they're fond enough of Natalie, they might give it the benefit of the doubt and go, oh, so Natalie was really pushing that, and Jacob took all the heat, and Jacob and Muna then went after each other, and Natalie was sitting back that whole time. I didn't even realize. That could be a big, big moment for her in this game if it happens that way.
Do you guys think that it's better that she owns her move next round and that she says it was me, and to let people think about it for longer? Or do you guys think that it's best for her to keep that a secret? Like, what would you do if you were in her scenario?
I think that the civil war is begun. I think that Muna and Jacob now are probably going to go head to head again. I think that literally, and the other benefit of being in Natalie's position where the expectations were probably so low because, again, everyone else has all these, they know each other's games, they know who's capable of what. Some people are already coming in with stake and with information on how they play. The bar in these probably, I don't know, I'm not there. The bar is probably set so low where even if it looks like she is playing, she is trying to execute moves, that is good stake to have in the game. And I do think that ultimately, because the move failed, it's better not to try and take credit on this one and maybe take credit on another one later down the line. I think the players within the game who know that she tried to do something might be more susceptible to working with her now, and she can use that bond, that capability now to make more moves that might work down the line that will be better for her resume. Because from the very public eye of this move, this was Jacob's move 100%. No one's going to see it any other way. Everyone's going to be like, Jacob fooled all these people, so he probably fooled her too into doing it. No one's going to, I don't think anyone's going to give credit to anybody else here.
Yeah, I think the last thing you want to is to appear to be the person that is like, no, that was my thing. I totally did that, guys. When it's like come
the
on,
Raven,
we know Jacob.
The Raven,
exactly.
Right?
You don't want to be in the position of trying to argue that something was yours or that you had agency. People just need to know that you need to show that you had agency. You cannot argue the case. It only makes it worse. So I don't think trying to claim credit or argue for credit is going to work. But I do think there's also this sort of interesting back and forth where, there are a lot of people in the game that do know that she had a role in this. And because of that, those people could throw her under the bus in an attempt to get Muna to drag her when Muna gets voted out or something along those lines. And so in that situation, you can either own up to it and get ahead of the ratting out and give your reasoning and all that, or you can just flat out deny it and be like, nah, they're lying. They're trying to get you to throw me in. We're from the same city. I'd never do that to you. And I feel like that's a spot that she can work right now. The only issue is that if multiple people corroborate the story, then she might be in some trouble and, could theoretically be a pick. But I still feel like unless, Jacob pulls off some magic, if Muna or Billy get voted in, they're pulling Jacob, right? It's just happening.
And then I wonder, because Jacob's clearly a smart player. He has to know Muna and Billy can't go next round because I'm going to be dragged. I don't have my power anymore. So I wonder if he's going to try to work that angle next round to get someone maybe a Marcelo to go home.
I mean, I hear that, but at the same time, Muna and Billy, super loyal to each other to the end. Muna has at least an LOS, perhaps now another power from Luxury Row. Mm-hmm. We're at the final 7. If she gets to the final 4, she's flat out winning the game. Nobody's going to drag her at the final 4. Or she's a super high percentage to win the game. If she gets there with Billy, it's over. There's usually some kind of immunity at 5 or 6. Which means if she plays an LOS at 7, if she's immune at 5, there's maybe one round where you can get her out, maybe, and even then she can still win a battle match, and she may still have a power. if you're anybody in this game, I think you need to be voting out Muna every single time, lest she just flat out win this game, because she's in such a super strong position right now. On top of everything, even if she wasn't Muna and so likable and so respectable, she's also just hung out with these people in the jury for however long she was in there with them and bonded with them, and they were rooting for her. And now Jacob knows that the LOS was willed to her by somebody in that jury, one of the people she was the least close to. Like, she is going to win this game unless all of the players agree we need to deal with this before we continue anything else.
No, that knowledge of the LOS is definitely going to probably pave a lot of the future game, because Jacob clearly has to utilize that if he's going to have any chance of getting her out, because you have to flush it or it's going to end up being like a Zach. And I don't want to compare Muna to Zach because that's not a fair comparison, but like, people didn't want to flush Zach's LOS out last season, and I feel like they have to flush out her LOS at like this next round, or she is getting to the end. But the question is, will they be bold enough to do it?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So ultimately, unless there's anything else from the dates that you guys wanted to bring up, we are going to get to the vote. The conversation between Billy and Brendan. I thought Brendan did a pretty good job here of essentially swaying. He recognized that Billy was like essentially indicating that she was going to vote for him. He was able to. This is what I really liked about this from Brendan. He didn't necessarily indicate that he was aware that he had caught on that she was going to vote for him, which was good, because if you call her out on it, she's going to get defensive. It's going to be bad. So he just kind of was like, okay, I'm kind of feeling like she's going to vote for me. I'm going to try as subtly as possible to threaten her off of it. And I feel like he really walked the line well, and he convinced her to flip her vote in a vital spot where, like, if these votes had gone a slightly different way, if say Jacob had been on board with the vote out Brendan plan, her vote switching could have been the difference between Brendan leaving and somebody else leaving. And so that was a big decision to make, and he did a good job here. Yeah, in the chat they keep mentioning. I forgot about this. That I've actually been saying Brendan's name wrong. It's I really should know better, considering that I've been watching the show for so long, and that these people have been playing with each other for 5 days. But his name is actually Brayden, as Muna told us. So many times in a row too. Like, whoever's conducting these confessionals needs to step up their correction game.
Just tell her, it's like, can you just do that again, but fix it?
Let her keep talking. Like, I feel like you can't really break Muna's flow if she's saying something. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
I do have one question though. Who is Billy's actual number one? Because I feel like watching her confessionals, she was like, "That's my girl, that's my boy," to like 3 or 4 people, and I didn't really get a good idea of who Billy's number one actually was.
I think it's Josh. I do. I just feel, I don't know. Like, I mean, like Josh said, she could be fooling me, I think, but there was something about the body language there with Josh, whereas obviously her and Muna are unspoken, but I feel like she might recognize that I will lose to Muna.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the big thing. She notices that. Otherwise, if it's like, listen, if we go to, like, if it doesn't matter, the win doesn't matter to me, Muna's number one to her. But I think it's Josh based on the way they held hand, the way they like locked eyes. I genuinely thought the body language spoke Josh to me. Yeah.
Let's lock this in. Wait, no, not that hand. I don't like that hand.
Oh, that was so funny.
What was that?
The other one. Because like,
did we get an explanation?
It was the right one, right? I feel like I've heard this.
Putting out his left hand, and I think
the left hand's deceptive.
Spencer's probably left-handed, and it was just
or just that, yeah.
Well, no, because yeah, I paid attention to see, like, was it just like a left-handed thing, and that's what it looked like. So I don't know. Maybe it's like a swear on your right hand, like you swear on the Bible, swear on the Quran, like whatever it is.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that if you shake with the left hand, it's deceptive. Like, you're supposed to with the right hand, but I'm a lefty, so I would understand that of like, hey, but like, I shake with my right hand anyway. So, but that's just me. I don't know. I'm now deciding if this is like a no, do this with the real hand, or is it a hey, I'm just more comfortable with the other one. I don't know.
Oh no, I think
maybe maybe just had a gross hand. I don't know. Because she was like, I don't like that hand.
Yawned into that hand
She's just
earlier.
like, I don't like that one. Give me the other one. Like, like maybe I don't know I don't know what he's doing with that hand.
It's like, I see a little bit of Cheeto dust on your finger. I don't trust it. Give me the other one. Thank you.
Yeah. But back to Billy, I agree. I think that in my mind, my theory here on Billy, I don't think she would ever consciously, actively betray Muna. I think she will be loyal to Muna at the end. That's why I think if Muna gets to the final four with Billy, game over. Billy will stick with Muna, and it'll be a wheel between Billy and whoever, and Muna will be in the end, and it'll be over. But I think that Billy recognizes that she's going to have a hard time. I don't think she necessarily thinks it's like done deal, because it's never really a done deal, but it's, you know, probably as close as it gets. And because of that, she is like, Josh is my strategic person. Josh is the person I would pick if Muna wasn't here. And if Muna finds herself not here again, not due to anything I did, then Josh is my person. But before that moment, she's going to be sticking with Muna, I think. And I think that's fine for her for now. You know, in fact, I think she's in a really great spot because Muna should most of the time go before her. If Muna's able to survive, she's probably going to be able to protect Billy along with her. And if that happens, then Billy can get to the end. And then if Billy did decide to just, you know, sneakily vote Muna out into 4, I mean, that's potentially a winning move, right? But we'll see. But we get here to the votes, and Muna, again, it was key that Muna had been convinced to change her vote to Brendan. She is actually the sole vote on Brendan because Billy also switched her vote. Spencer ends up putting his vote, Brendan puts his vote on Spencer, as we saw. 3 votes, Jacob, Natalie, and Marcelo go on Muna. That's going to carry the vote. It's 3-2-2-1, I believe. With Billy threw her vote onto Spencer.
Yes. With
Brendan, Spencer, and Josh put on Marcelo. And then the 3 votes came on to Muna. Muna did not use her LOS, and Muna, in the biggest blindside all season long, is put up there. Brendan seems more surprised than anyone, and this is the moment that we've been building to all episode, and every single conversation could have deviated from this, but it didn't, and it came to this. Muna is called. And this is when things get really wild because right away, Jacob is like pre-admitting the betrayal, right? He's jumping to the defense, which is always a bad sign. If somebody's prepared to defend themselves, that's a very bad sign, in my opinion, because that means that they knew they were going to be called out and they were ready to go with the reason, right? And so Billy's pissed off, of course, and Jacob is like, I told you what I was going to have to do what I had to do, and Muna is pissed, and she's looking at Miss Marcelo, and she's looking at Jacob, and you can see her staring at Jacob too. You can see the stare. And Jacob's just like, and she asks for Marcelo's vote. And I thought Marcelo was going to say, I heard it was between you and Jacob, so I had to vote. But he was just like, I voted you. I think he just got lost in the moment. And
had Jacob's back there. Like,
yeah, he didn't even corroborate the story.
Yeah.
It's just so I feel like, because you could kind of tell with both, like I think with him and that moment, I think it was one of those things where there might have been some regret in that moment. Like as it's happening, you know, you're building up, you're getting to the reveal. It's like, I'm literally about to stand here, look at my friend's face and be like, I masterminded this. After literally, and I think here's the biggest thing, right? After all that emotion was put into it, like Muna let her guard down. Muna let her guard completely down. Muna is, to me, one of those players, this is me speaking on like previous experience and overall, she is someone who is emotionally invested in the people that she ends up working with. She if she's riding with them, she's dying with them, she's working with them, and then for her to do all that and then put her trust in Jacob, tell him about the LOS, all of this, to then hear him admit that he was a part of this, like that is a gut punch. And I think Jacob in that moment just like was kind of like, I don't know, a little bit probably like disgusted with himself. I imagine, I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard to firm that move with chest after everyone's out here shocked of like, what just happened? And you know, you kind of have to admit what you're doing, because also at the same time, the jury's sitting right there. It can't just be a completely invisible situation. I just think it was all hit ahead at one point. I think there was like barely any of those movements and emotions were on purpose. It just slipped out of them.
I'm going to make a weighty comparison here, but throughout this episode, watching Jacob talk to Billy, watching Jacob talk to Muna, and just like getting confessional after confessional about like, you know, Jacob's such a great guy, this connection, I trust him so much, and he's really laying it on thick, leading into the betrayal moment. Like, I don't know that I've felt this feeling so strongly since like Dan cut Shane at the Final Four of Big Brother 14, where it's just like, oh my God, he did it. Like I got a lot of it from Cody cutting Nicole. That was great. That was great stuff. But even that didn't really have the weight of this. And I mean that for like the full compliment to Jacob, because for as much as, you know, as we can criticize the move and will criticize the move at different levels, I loved this move from a television perspective. From Jacob.
So fun.
This is incredible television. I mentioned this last night when I was streaming about it, but you know, we've had a bit of a dry stretch of episodes, and if this season plays out well from here, if even if it doesn't, but assuming it does, assuming we get a good rest of the season, you have to give thanks to Jacob for creating that, because Jacob made a move like this in such a brutal way, in such a well-conceived way, and it blew up in his face, and he's probably not going to be rewarded for it in the game. But man, is it going to really just help this season? Because if Jacob doesn't do this, if Jacob does go along with Muna because he's friends with Muna, we're just watching Big Brother 22 again. We're just watching all of the pre-existing relationships storming through a game. I'm sure that's great for the people playing it. And I do want to make sure that, like, we talk about, you know, Muna's feelings are 1,000% valid. And she gets to feel as hurt as she wants to, and she gets to be as mad as she wants to. But in terms of, you know, the viewers watching a game play out in the way where friends don't betray each other, like, this is, I think, what a lot of people wanted to see. And I don't want to speak for everyone. I'm sure there are some people that don't like to see this. But this is, you know, raw gameplay, feelings involved, all of it, great stuff. So much kudos to Jacob for doing this.
I think part of what also makes it compelling is that Muna did not go home. So this is not a resolved storyline yet. This is going to continue to develop. And I think that a lot of people are eager to see how this develops into the next round. Like, it's obviously still compelling, even if Muna does go home, but there's still so much like more room for it to grow. And I think Jacob makes for a very compelling villain, and Muna is more on the heroic end, and it's gonna make for a good battle for these last few episodes, hopefully.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was just the whole episode was phenomenal, because the first date we see is Muna, or one of the first dates we see is Muna and Spencer, and Muna literally says the words, "I don't want this to be predictable. I don't want this to just be like a what's going to be the given." So to put that in there in the edit, and then for her to be the one that gets voted out, was like wild. This was a very fun moment in this season for me. I had a good time. I have love for both of them. I mean, I know them personally. I've messaged. They were the two people I messaged right out the gate when the cast got announced. I was like, listen, Like, you have my support no matter what. And someone's in the chat, and if I may make an address here.
I believe the ratings were there all along, and we just saw them right here, right now, Mr. Walcomot. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Just this was phenomenal. It's 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't I don't think I've ever watched somebody on a show that's not Big Brother and thought more strongly, I want to see this person on Big Brother, than watching Jacob in this episode and really throughout the whole season. But like, this is everything that you would ever want. And apologies to Brent, but like, for as entertaining as you can be, you did not have the power in this game to pull something off like this, right? Like, Jacob has it all. And so, man, do I want to see Jacob play more of these games. I don't know if, like, I have no idea how he's reacting to this. I don't know if, like, because this is the sort of thing where, like this can not only hurt the person that it's done to, but it can also just, like, Jacob may be like, you know what? I'm done. I am destroyed by this. Like, I just did this really big thing, and it feels terrible, and I'm not sure I can ever do it again. But he may also be like, look, I had to do what I had to do, and either one I think is respectable. But man, I am so impressed with the do we want good TV of this of it all here. So that's I just had to bring that up here, because I do want to get into a little bit more criticism of the execution. So there were two big things in this battle match selection for Jacob that I was like, oof. And again, like, this is super high emotion, tense, like thing, right? Like it's all happening very fast. It's very difficult to play optimally when you're in this kind of scenario and emotions are running high and things are going, and people are yelling at you and they're questioning you and they're staring at you and you're like, ah. But I didn't like that Muna looks to Jacob and he basically was like, I told you what I had to do, right? Like, I told you. Like, he's essentially admitting to his vote before she even makes him confirm his vote. And I don't like this for a couple of reasons. One is that I think, there was the option of pulling a Billy and being like, I don't understand. I'm with you. I would never, you don't need to question my vote, and just like hoping it works, right? He could have tried that, and I think it could have worked. Or just force her to reveal your vote, because what you don't want is to give her free information. If she doesn't pick you, that means she's picking somebody else. And we already, as we saw, picking Brendan, and Brendan's like, I voted for Spencer. I don't even know what's happening right now. If she picks Josh, and Josh is like, I voted Marcelo. She's like, it's really going to start to click in her head that this story that there are people voting for Jacob is pure nonsense, because nobody else voted for Jacob and nobody else voted for her. That this was a small group of people, a plurality vote that took her out, led by Jacob and Marcella. There's 2 votes right there, and there are a bunch of other votes that aren't me or you. So what's happening here, Jacob? So I didn't like that. Ultimately, she comes back around to him, because I don't think she fully understood what he was trying to convey to her in that moment. But I was like, oh, Jacob, no, don't do that.
Yeah, and I think that for the in that moment, right, the way Jacob's saying this, I felt like, if I'm putting myself in Muna's shoes, it's me, someone telling me, you have no right to be upset with me because I had no choice. Like, it was too defensive too quick. There wasn't even like a argument for him to then bounce back. Like, he was hitting her with a rebuttal when there was no statement. So it was definitely, he jumped the gun on that big time. He in a move where I don't think he intended it. He kind of told her, you can't have emotions about this because it was valid what I did. So it was just again, we gave him this praise, and this is where we're looking at it. We're like, this wasn't good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's, you try to pull off something this ambitious, you need to nail every detail. And so these are the details that I think were kind of left off. Second thing, once Muna's like, it's Jacob, get up here. And he goes up there, and this just played out so perfectly in how it happened, where Jacob goes up there and he's like, I would just like to say, and like it feels like he's about to reveal his power, right? And she's like, no, you're not your time, not your time to speak. And like, first I have to give a speech about this, and he keeps trying to be like, actually, I'm not going to be in this battle match, and she keeps telling him to stop talking. And it couldn't have been scripted more perfectly in terms of like the dramatic irony. And so like after like all of the speech and everything, he finally is like, so actually I found this thing and I'm not going to be battling. And so throughout all of that buildup, I'm thinking in my head, oh wow, Jacob needs to pit Muna against Billy. And oh wow, does that make it so much more brutal if he does that. But there's no other move, it feels, right? Like this is like Billy and Muna are so pissed at you. They are like cheering for your demise, pulling you into the battle match. They like, you're dead to them. It doesn't seem like you're going to be able to win them back. By picking anyone other than Billy, you're creating a third enemy and guaranteeing that two people are now going to be super pissed at you coming into the next round. And by picking Brendan, by picking a third person, you are providing the opportunity for exactly what happens, which is both Billy and Muna are now still in the game, very much loyal to each other, very much pissed off at you. And that's a really bad spot to be. But at the same time, it's like, it would have been that much more brutal if he had turned around and been like, all right, Muna, now battle your best friend in the game, the only person you have left now that I've betrayed you because you thought you had me and I tricked you. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he did it, if he didn't do it because it was that much more brutal, or because he didn't think of it, or because he was just so set on the original plan, which was Brendan, and he wanted to maintain his deniability. But I really felt like he should have picked Billy here, Kristen.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that I think Jacob is convinced that like, oh yes, Billy and Moon are heated right now, but like once I get back in the game, I can explain myself and they're gonna forgive me. I think that's the only rationale that Jacob has. I think he thinks he can smooth things over, but I don't think he can. So
yeah, I'm not sure I see it.
So I definitely think that was his reasoning. I don't think he was ever putting Billy in because I think that like definitely incriminates him. Whereas now it's like he can still sort of try to like scrape a little lie in there, but yeah, I think that's definitely where he was coming from.
I think there's a couple. So for me, I think that obviously putting Billy in after all of the work he put, again, the two people he like went in on like with emotions was them two. So he's already put the knife in. To twist it was going to take so much more out of him. It's a lot. Like, it's one thing. Listen, we're all sitting here speaking game. We talk about strategy all the time. It's one thing to say it when we're faced with it. That percentage chance of I'm going to do it is probably going to drop. Like,
I'll be super clear about this. I don't think I could have done what Jacob did. I definitely couldn't have put Billy in there myself. I, the robot, would not have had the heart for it. I very much applaud it. I'm glad he did, but I don't think I would have had it in me.
Yeah, I think that the other thing is it's a little bit of the, if I may draw from another example, it's a little bit Vanessa Rousseau to me, where it's like he's fully believing this narrative that he's put out there and he has no choice to. I do think that it's a combination of that and what you were saying, Kristen, where like he is going to go into the next round now and fully be like, listen, I genuinely thought it was like me or you. I threw my vote on you. That was my mistake, my bad. Listen, I put Brendan up because that's who I wanted out anyways. Like, he's gonna try and clean it up. And I think Jacob's somebody who, you know, I know he has chill demeanor. I know he gets along with people. The dude has a target on his back and is still there, still being given enough room to play the game like this. I think he's believing that he can make that happen. And I think if it's not that, it ultimately comes down to literally this would have been the most gut punching thing to do. And he goes from like up until last week, somebody who I think for the most part is amicable, everyone loves him. It's Jacob Jones, the homie. Like, who's got beef with him? To now literally the devil of the Sequester realm by doing this, pulling this hoodwink, and then putting Muna and Billy. That's like some heartless shit if he did it. He just couldn't do it, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think there is a decent argument to say that going that brutal, twisting the knife, maybe that does lose him some jury votes. Maybe that does lose him, whatever shot. And there is a chance that Brendan wins this over Muna, and now Muna's not in the game anymore, and you do have to deal with Brendan, but Brendan's not that dangerous in this game at this point in time. And it's a risk that could have paid off, but it didn't. It did not pay off. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he's out of the game either, but it definitely made his move look bad, which, maybe his move failing in this way is a better look to the jury than succeeding, but being that much more brutal. Who knows? So we'll see on that regard. But man, is Muna is just so good at just like pulling people's heartstrings. When she talks about representation, she's got Natalie like in tears. The person who orchestrated, she's like, I feel so bad. And it's like, that is power. Like, that is real, tangible power. Like, there is a reason that she is a legend in the community, and it is because of this power that she has, this power that she holds over people. And it's the sort of thing, like, I've talked about this before with Big Brother, but like, you can always tell, like, even if it didn't seem like it in the game, that like, if somebody gets voted out and people are devastated afterward, like, oh, that person was doing a lot better in this game than we thought, right? Like, oh wow. And man, were people devastated in this moment, Christen?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And that also reminds me, like, that could also be another reason that he put Brendan into the battle match, is that he knows that jury is going to be emotionally invested into Muna's story. And so by putting in Billy, that's sort of like saying, like, I don't care about your story. But by putting in Brendan, that jury now like sees like, oh, like, it's not like a complete shot against Muna. Like, I'm not this like evil, like terrible guy. Like, jury, love me, please. Like, I'm not that bad of a person. I think that's definitely another thing. But definitely from a viewer perspective, I really admire her power. And that's definitely something that like I look up to, because I love strong women. So
Yeah, like Muna is the type of person, when she walks into a room, she can control it with as many words as she wants or as few words as she wants. She really does have captivating energy. I'm someone I come from a Muslim household. I definitely see what she's saying. There's literally no one like Muna out on this in this reality TV realm at all. I had a big list. By big, I mean just a tweet, because the list isn't that big, of all the Muslim players we've had in Big Brother, period, US and Canada. There's really not that many of us. So for her to be able to do her thing on a stage, doesn't matter how big or small the stage is, it means a lot to her. It really does mean a lot to her. And when she says she's here to represent, I think that some people might say that just to say that. Muna means it with every fiber of her being. So this means a lot to her in that regard. What Natalie said is genuinely what I believe Muna's case to be. Natalie's like, I'm here to try and win this game. Like, Muna's here for representation. And I think Muna holds this on her back with pride. Like, I don't think it's something she just says to say it. So she's definitely someone who I've always appreciated seeing in the space. And I've been someone who's watched her speak up close in these games, and I have fully seen what she's capable of. So,
yeah. And I have seen, like I've seen people like criticizing Jacob for the move. I've also seen people criticizing Muna for the response to the move. But just chill out, guys. I think in particular, it's sort of like the hypocrisy of the criticism of Muna, where it's like, well, what Jacob did was just part of the game. You can't be mad at it. Like, yeah, what Muna did was also part of the game. It was in the game, and it had an effect on the game. Like, you are being the person that's getting, upset about something that happened in the game. Like, you're doing it yourself. And like, just because you don't, see things in the same way, or you have a different value system when it comes to the game, doesn't mean that everyone has to believe the same way, and everyone has a right to their own feelings, right? So it's she has that. Everybody's gonna react in a different way, right? And that was her reaction, and it was a very effective one, right? But wow, again, what an episode. And the music, I want to say the editing in this episode was great. This was definitely a longer episode, but I did feel like it justified it with the content it provided, and it really built up to this moment, and the music choice was spot on in multiple places where it really swelled during the argument in a really like sort of like perfectly melancholy way, where like this is exciting but also sad, which I felt like it was that kind of feeling that was missing for me with previous drama in the season, where like people were yelling at each other for 20 minutes and it was just like, what is happening? But this felt purposeful. It felt meaningful, deep, like there was actual context and it actually meant something. It was going somewhere. And the music hit that in just the right spot, and they had queued it up previously with some of the, with some of the music during the Billy and Muna talks and the Jacob and Muna talks and so on and so forth. Just very, very well done stuff here. Very, very, very proud. I'm very, I'm very proud of Sequester for stepping up its game. It really brought it to the plate here, really turning it on. Prior to this moment, I don't know, but nobody better say anything bad about Sequester anymore.
Someone come collect Marcelo, please. No, I mean, that's the editing of the season, the music, the every bit of it. Like, shout out to Aaron, who I know both has a hand in the music and was the narrator for the date night vignettes that we saw.
Great old-timey voice.
By the third night, I was like, yo, this sounds a little bit like Aaron, and it was him. And obviously Will from America also putting out the music there. They've really got they've got a great team put together for this. Like, there is at no point am I watching this and I'm not feeling a thing. And specifically in this episode with the music here at the end, like, this connects. Obviously, I know the two of them. I know the relationship. I know how much they're both probably hurting from this happening. I know what's about to happen. Like, as I'm watching, I watched this a couple hours after it aired. And I was like, yo, I need to make sure they're both okay. Like, this is going to be like, I knew the wave of social media was going to come through and like go after everybody. But no, honestly, they do such a good job of telling the story. This episode was well done for that as well, in every facet, in my opinion.
Yeah. So then we get to the battle match. Jacob is going to choose Brendan as the replacement. And to top everything off, this was my favorite battle match so far. At least at least tied with like the first one, which I also thought was like very visual and I could follow it. Just because, this is a little bit damning with faint praise because it was my favorite one because I haven't really liked many of the other ones. But like, trivia, I can follow the score. I was able to throughout the entire challenge, I knew what was happening. I knew who was in the lead, who was not in the lead, and I knew when it was going to end, and I knew the moment where either Brendan wins or ties or Muna wins. And it was like, and then the answer is true or whatever. It's I was actually able to be stressed during it because I wasn't just like a little bit confused. Like, is it over yet? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, yes, it is.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, kind of not, just because like with this battle match and I was playing along, I was like answering the questions because it was true and false. It was very 50-50. I feel like I guessed like 7 or 8 of the questions correct, just like a little based on common sense. And I think that the math of the challenge, if it's true or false, makes it easier for people to guess correctly. So I don't know how much of the battle match victory or the loss was attributed to luck. I think if the competition was multiple choice, like A, B, C, or D, I think that would have probably been a little better. But I actually really like this challenge, like aside from that as well. And I like the tension of when they grabbed the rod and they were like pulling it out. I was like clenching the entire time, like, oh my God, is it gonna happen? And it just like never did. And when it didn't, you just like that little sigh of relief. Like it was very tense.
Clear stakes, easily trackable. Like you know, if a ball drops, it's over. You know, if it ends at 10 questions and the person ahead is in the lead is going to win. and you can see it all happening in front of you. I do agree. I had a slight issue with the questions, just in the sense that like it was also like you can't really play along at home because we didn't read the thing.
The script, yeah.
So, and nor would I really have wanted to like read an entire, however long it was and try to remember. Like, I probably wouldn't have played along if that was the requirement. But normally with trivia, like, it's fun to try to play along because they're easy enough questions where like you do get the prompt or you do get the whatever. But this was just like, is it 60 or 70%? I'm like, I didn't even read the thing in the first place. I just gonna wait for the answer, I guess. But overall, definitely really, it was the important part for me is that it worked narratively in the episode, and I was able to follow it, and that was definitely the biggest thing for me, and I did feel like it was a great ending to an already very exciting episode here. But yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that this was a very great way to incorporate. At the start of every episode, we learned that this is, Warehab is involved with this season. And I thought this was a great way to remind us of what Warehab stands for. I thought it was done in a way that wasn't like, it didn't take over the episode whatsoever. And it was a good reminder of what's happening. They did have, some facts were mentioned here, and it was good education had by all, in my opinion. While watching an intense battle match go down, you're still learning stuff as you're going along. And I think that was very important. And I think that worked out really well. I enjoyed this challenge as well.
Well, another thing I didn't enjoy, or I kind of did, but it was like the cheesy, like Jake walks up and everybody's like, "Oh, hey, Jake." It was just like I thought that was like so silly. I don't know why. Just like when he walks up, it felt a little scripted, but I don't know. I thought that was a little silly.
Yeah, I feel like you can kind of pull that off in like Big Brother because the whole show is super cheesy and doesn't always take itself seriously. The Sequester does take itself a little more seriously sometimes, so it's I don't know if they can pull those moments off as well. But could you imagine like in Sequester if like the Sequester bot was just like get ready for a takeover, or no, what's the Sequester voice? I can't even do it. Like, get ready for a takeover.
Do you think I could do it with this voice? Like, you could probably do it better than I can.
It's but yeah, it was a little awkward. But it was a great episode. I was so happy. Like last episode felt like the low point, and this feels like the high point for me. This is my favorite episode of the season so far, and one of my favorite episodes I've watched of any reality competition show in a while. So very, very pleased. And yeah, the fact that Muna wins this one means that we are in for some more intrigue moving forward from here. And I feel like anything can happen coming into the next episode. And I'm excited to. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, and also Brendan was a really good sport when he lost. I feel like some people are just like, "Oh, dang it!" But like he was. I feel like he was really grateful to be there. So, like even though Brendan got taken out, I think he handled his loss very well, and he's clearly rooting for Muna from the jury, which is also probably going to make it harder for Muna. But I'm interested to see how Muna comes back, how Jacob and Muna interact, everything. It was a really great build up for the next episodes.
Yeah, I think coming into this episode, having seen how the last couple went, obviously I came and be like, well, let's see how we're going to see Spencer get to the end, get voted out, and then like fight someone. I really thought that was like the foregone conclusion. So to not have it be that, that was obviously a bump in its own right. Even though like I might not be rating the guy's game, but watching this all go down, I'm glad Muna ends up staying in. I think the two of them going head to head is going to be very interesting. Obviously, I want to sit here and be like, why are my friends fighting? Like, I don't want that. But I know as a viewer, it's what I want. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's going to be a good time. I will say, Brendan did redeem himself, because when Brendan loses and he goes from his chillness, like, all right, now I don't want Muna to go, but I'm going to make it happen. I'm not leaving. I was like, why is every dude getting voted out and then immediately puffing chest? Like, I feel like every week someone's doing this. And I'm like, what happens in that like 5 seconds where like you get picked, where like you start, like you go full Hulk? I feel like I was like, okay, I guess Brendan's not immune to this either. But I will say, I will agree, when the round finished, he took the L, he moved on. That's fine. We're good. Everything's good. I was surprised. I'm not going to lie to you, because I'm like, I haven't been reading the Edgic. I know someone's been posting Edgic on Twitter. I've not been reading that. I'm trying to figure out what the edit is telling me. And I was in this moment where I was like, I feel like Brendan's just gonna like skate to the end. So when he went out, I was like, oh snap, okay. Next week just got more interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, in retrospect, it feels like, you know, he had such a promising edit in order to make this even that much more unpredictable and exciting, right? So,
kudos,
which is great. But yeah, I see that every time. It's like the second somebody gets chosen or voted out, it's like, well, speech time, I guess. The way that I've been playing this game all game long is that I've done it this way, and that there are no coronations involved.
Yeah,
Christen has a coronation.
I have a coronation right here. So I came with the coronation.
I told her, I'm sorry, you're not allowed on this podcast. There are no coronations involved here.
I have to censor myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like outside of Spencer, who kind of has not recovered from that initial coronation speech, is kind of like following that same energy the whole way through of everything. Everyone else, like once they stand up, they're like, all right, you mother effers, let's get down to business. All right, I'm gonna call you a pussy, and I'm gonna go after this one. And I'm like, yo, relax. Like we're gonna get the battle match, then we're gonna move on. Like this isn't forever. But there's definitely something in the air when they get picked where they're like, it's like they have to pump themselves up in that moment, and I think that's a lot of their defaults. My pump up is I have to like dance to amp myself up a little stupidly, but I mean, let me get in a public setting where I have to amp myself up where everyone's looking. Maybe I'll do that. Probably not. Probably dance stupidly, but you know, that's just me.
I also think just as a player, like as someone who's played the game before, I think like when you get picked for a battle match, like that could be the end of your game. So this is like your last chance to really leave your mark on the game and to like leave a legacy. And I think that sort of like enters people's mind that when they're called up, like this is my last chance to like show who I am as a player, to like leave my mark, to tell everybody what I did so that I'm not like the irrelevant person in the show. So I think that's definitely a big part of why people talk super big when they get voted out or when they get picked for a battle match.
I brought this up earlier, but Marcelo being like, you're showing your real form now, Brandon. You're showing your real form now, like amping him up. I was like, someone say that to Marcelo. Maybe he'll do something next week. Like, who knows? Like, let's mess around with Marcelo a little bit. See if he comes out of his cocoon.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we have for you this week. What an episode. Definitely looking forward to the next one. I did speak with Brendan earlier today, so once we wrap up, I will play that video here, and you'll see it at the end of this podcast, and you'll hear it at the end of this podcast. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much to Christen and Pooya. Christen, where can people find you?
All my social medias are all the same user hand. It's at WChristenFaith. And so, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory.
There you go. Pooya, what are you up to?
So I will be back talking 90 Day Fiancé with Rob. We just did episode 6 today with guest Jenny Autumn. That'll be in your feeds probably tonight, tomorrow. So look out for that. It's been a good season so far. Been loving it. Masked Dancer, talking about that. Only selected to do 3 episodes with Liana. So we're doing one after episode 4, one after the finale. I think we made the right call given what we've seen so far. It's goofy. It's fun. It'll be a good time. And then, of course, I stream 3 times a week on twitch.tv/Pooyaism. And aside from that, you can find me on all other major platforms, also at Pooyaism as well. Christen, it was nice meeting you for the first time. I've never talked to you before. This was amazing.
I watched you in the Sequester and you won. So I'm like sort of like a distant fan. So like it's like you've never heard of me, but I've heard of you type of thing. So it was really nice to meet you.
Yes. If you want to watch Pooya and I play some Among Us together, you can watch him, murder me in the place where you go, Specimen.
Oh man.
You can find we're playing Among Us Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Leading into the Sequester watch party that I do, where I watch it live on Twitch. You can find me, of course, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, or on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. And yeah, that's what we got. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and I will see you all next time. And just let me pull up
Pull
the
up the clip.
the interview here. I'll get it ready. It was not entirely ready all the way when I pulled this up. So here it is. Now it's on the screen, and we will get playing it. But thank you once again for hanging out with us, and I'll see you all next time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our exit interview for Sequester episode 6. I believe here is episode 6. Brendan is with me. How you doing, Brendan?
I am doing great. It's been a weird 24 hours leaving the game, but it was an incredible experience, and I'm humbled. I'm thankful that I even have the opportunity to speak with you and unpack some of this stuff that I've been waiting to talk about for the last 3 months. So yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild ride of an episode here for you to go out on.
Yeah.
Were you happy with how the episode came out?
So I want to note that the editing style of this episode was kind of like nothing that I've ever seen in reality TV in general. And for that, I'm super appreciative that I could go out on such an iconic episode. The old timey editing style and the way that they really like narrated, the development of the story was super cool for me. And to know the outcome, especially, and see how all these moving parts pieced it together, and to see all the conversations that I couldn't the first time when I was playing, it was amazing. So yeah, I enjoyed the outcome as a viewer.
What were you most surprised by watching things back, particularly from this episode?
Particularly from this episode, I'd say my date with Marcelo, actually, because a little bit of context for those who are not too heavily involved in the Sequester community. There was this smaller event within the mini community called the Mystery Date. And it was essentially Audrey, the host of Sequester, asked MP, a player from season 3 of Sequester, to come on as sort of like a bachelorette. And she brought on 5 dudes who were in each of their respective rooms. And then we all had to, in one chat, sort of vie for the love of MP. It was like a cool little, internet dating thing, little, just a test out. But me and Marcelo were both contestants in that. And so when we got to the house in Georgia, that was something that we really connected on early. And so in that date, that was something that I brought up, was like, you're one of the only people that I could trust. We did the mystery date thing together. But yeah, it didn't end up panning out. He was a little bit smarter than me. He had the one up on me, and yeah, he duped me. So I was shocked to see that back. And it made sense to me when he was in confessional, like, I'm sorry when you see this, man, because I was really with him. I was like, man, like, it wouldn't make sense for me to vote you out right now, because I have this prior connection with you, even though it is really small.
Was that the only connection you felt like you had coming in, or were there other people that you felt like you might have had?
So Katie is actually a very close friend of mine outside of the game, because she is one of my brother's best friends. And a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, my older brother and Katie are really good friends in the real world. And so a lot of people didn't know that. And we kept it low key. It never ended up really mattering too much from a game perspective. But yeah, that was really the only other prior connection I had. So from, even the first round, I would say I was pretty on my own. I didn't really have a lot of the connections that some of these other people had.
Were you aware of how connected some people were?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I was somebody who was involved in the mini community. I definitely had my fair share of distance. But I did have an idea of who knew who. There were definitely some relationships that totally flew over my head, like Marcelo and Jacob. I had no idea that they were friends before this. And you know what? In hindsight, that's on me. I should have done a little more research and maybe suspected that Jacob or Marcelo might be out there. So yeah, I'd say that was on me. But yeah, no, I didn't really have all too many connections outside of Marcelo and Katie.
So what was watching your game from my perspective, it seemed like you were doing a really good job of sort of staying out of the limelight. Sort of like you weren't really a consideration for the vote for most of the rounds. You were never really a consideration for the drag most of the rounds. Like you were doing a good job of like staying in that sweet spot of like still seen as somewhat of a threat, but nobody's really coming for you yet. Was that intentional? Were you trying to stay there?
Very intentional. And for me, I am always the person who watches reality TV. I watch these shows, and I envision myself being the person out front, the person making these big, bold, flashy moves. But it's different when you are out there and you have to logistically think about what is the best move for me as an individual. Because if you look at the way that the season was, I'm the youngest person out there. And like I told you in my pregame interview, nobody likes to get told what to do by somebody who's 20 years old. And so for me, yes, being in the background may have not been like super flashy, but that was what was necessary. I really thought through what is it that makes people not want to vote you out. Because I figured if I can lower my chances to only getting picked for a battle match, then I'm already doing better for myself. So I asked myself, what is it that makes people not want to vote you out? And that is, for me, if you're somebody that I feel like will have my back indefinitely and somebody throws your name out, even though that's not me, I won't want to get rid of you because you're beneficial for me down the line. And so I wanted to make sure that I was somebody like that for everybody. I wanted to make sure that I was somebody that if my name was brought up, people would say, no, I don't want to do that because Brendan has expressed to me how good he feels with me, even though I was doing that to everybody. You saw it in date night. I went around to every single person and I said, we need each other because we're a big threat. And you know what that does? That makes them feel good. It makes them feel like we have something in common. It makes them feel like we have something that we can band together over. And honestly, I feel like it's sort of something that you have to speak into existence. Like Natalie called me out very nonchalantly. It was very like Brendan's been sitting pretty, and then it kind of blew over and it went into another argument, right? But I took that and I said, okay, I need to really use this as my leverage, as my strong arm into getting these bigger names to connect with me, because a lot of that is, perception. You just need people to think that you're on the same playing field with them, whether, you are playing a similar game or not.
Mm-hmm. So where did it go wrong? What happened here?
Oh man, I have to say I really did not play well date night. Especially watching it back, I can really see I was very one-dimensional in my train of thought. I think I got very fixated on what I had called the attack dog strategy. I at one point had recognized that Spencer was never going to pull me in. And I don't know whether that was when he asked me for a final two or after. I think it might have been after he had told me, like, it was a secret scene. If you're a patron, you can go and watch it. I'm pressing Spencer to see where he is, where he's going to go if he gets pushed in, where he's going to pull, where his logic is on pulling somebody into the battle match. And he's not giving. And then at that point, I figured, okay, Spencer might pull me, but he didn't. And so at that point, I realized, okay, even if he's going to give me a soft threat, he's not actually going to pull the trigger. And so I realized from that point on, Spencer's not going to pull me in. And while it's a boring gameplay, for somebody like me who was in the position that I was in, it made a lot of sense to keep riding the middle and keep throwing in this common enemy that is just going to beast his way through these battle matches and take out these people that if I cross, I'm going to have a harder time getting away with. I mean, you even said it yourself. I had to, sort of be in the background. And I think part of that is because of my age, but having somebody like Spencer out in front of me who could just repeatedly take people out, it really helped somebody who was in my position in the game.
Mm-hmm. So what was the long-term plan then? Say you managed to get Spencer as the vote this round, and he goes in and he, I don't know how many beats Muna again or something, right?
Yeah.
Like what is how do you then get to the end? Who do you get to the end with? And like how confident are you that you can win a jury vote?
So I just want to clarify first. Because some people had questions. For me, they were like, so why were you like working with Spencer, but also trying to vote him out all the time? I was working with Spencer to the degree of I knew Spencer would never throw me in. And I knew Spencer didn't have social capital in the house up to this point. And so even if he had voted for me, like it wouldn't really matter. The contrary to that is if Spencer had gone home any of those times that we had, put him in, it wouldn't have been like a shockwave to me. I wouldn't have been like devastated over it. I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question? I kind of lost there.
Like, what was the long-term plan? Like, who did you?
Oh, that's right.
What was your path to the end?
So, if Spencer continued to win, I was going to continue to try and vote him out until either he lost or he made it to the final four where there wouldn't be a battle match. However, you saw in date night, I was talking with Josh and Natalie about switching sides and going with them. Up to this point in the game, I hadn't really been working with them. And I guess you can see now that Natalie was not really on board for that. But I was 100% on board for that. At that time in the game, I felt like Natalie was somebody that I could beat. And so when they approached me with this 3-person deal, I was all on board for it. So we were going to be at 7 people the next round. And I was going to say, okay, us 3 plus 1 more person, that's all we need. And now we have the numbers till the end of this thing. So I was planning on writing it out with Josh, Natalie, and then either Marcelo or Spencer would have been my hope. Spencer, in the case that, he continues to win for me and I don't have to take people out, or Marcelo in the fact that I think that he would have been either an easy vote at 4 or an easy drag at 3. So it was definitely interesting. The other thing that I really wanted to make sure that I did was play round to round. I catch myself sometimes getting too invested in what's going to happen and not focusing on what's right in front of me, especially in like a game sense, because, I'm usually so confident in my abilities to make it to the end. All I want to do is start preparing for what I'm going to say and what I'm going to do when I get there. But yeah, it was tough. And yeah, I can't imagine what would have actually happened had I gone through to the next round or, the next couple rounds. You never really know.
Yeah. What was your reaction? I mean, we saw your reaction, but like, what was the feeling when Muna's name gets called as the vote for the date night round, and like you're just watching this just like drama play out in front of you? Like, are you reevaluating like everything at that point?
So, yeah, I was really blindsided. I knew some people were talking about Muna, but like I said, I really didn't play this round well. I was really one-dimensional. I really thought people were going to side with me. I thought people's logic would match with mine, and that was my fault. But Muna being voted out shocked me really bad because after that last date, I thought I was going in. I thought I was being voted in. I thought everybody was lying to me because Billy was like, everybody's been saying your name. And up to that point, I had just been targeted the round before and I had to fend that off. I was one of 3 people that hadn't been in a battle match. And also I was the player in the game. This was never really brought up, but I was the player in the game that went the longest without having a vote revealed, being dragged, or eliminated. Like the combination of all 3, I was the only one that was untouched until like round 5 or 6. And so a lot of these like threats that were coming for me, I was like, okay, like this is probably the time when people are now getting time one-on-one where they don't have to speak in front of me like Spencer had to the round before where he fumbled the bag. And so I was definitely worried. I was definitely concerned. When Muna got voted out, like I said, I'd heard about it, was really shocked though. And then I sort of decompressed when she picked Spencer. I was like, oh, okay, like, whew, we're in 7, like we're good. Like I'm gonna have a night to sort of figure things out in my head and reevaluate and see where I want to go, and how I want to play this with Natalie and Josh. And as I'm starting to decompress, obviously Jacob's like, Brendan, get in here. So that was just throwing me back right into the adrenaline.
Do you think that was the right call from Jacob to throw you in there against Muna?
So it's tough because even with like the edit of the show, there's still stuff that we don't see, and there's still stuff that I don't know and haven't seen. So it's a tough call. I think had he pulled in Billy, it probably would have been more beneficial for his game at that time. He was already arguing with Billy. I was somebody who at that point actually had Jacob's back. I didn't want him to go. I would have wanted Muna to go before Jacob. And yeah, but he had also been plotting to do that for a couple rounds. I think since he got it, he sort of recognized, like, if I'm going to use this on somebody, I want to use it on Brendan. I think he mentioned that in confessional. So the premeditated nature of it, I can respect. I think that's cool. I haven't seen that in reality TV where somebody's like, I'm going to get this advantage and I'm going to particularly use it on this one person. So it was interesting to see from a viewer perspective.
Well, he might have been worried about having to face you in a battle match because he saw your preparations in episode 1. I don't know what this was going on here. Something. Oh yeah, it was upside down.
Oh man, so the fans have been asking what this is, and I'm ready to come forward with what was going on.
Okay, we're breaking this story wide open.
Yes. So during the first day, when you come to Sequester and you get time to socialize and get to know your competitors, there's a lot of different approaches. And so, some people jump right into the strategy right away. They want to build alliances. They want to get right into it. Me, on the other hand, I wanted to build those connections. I wanted to make people feel really good around me. I wanted to be the funny guy. I wanted to be the adolescent goofball, and show these people why I'm not going to be threatening to their game. And so while some people were, strategizing and talking about the game, me and a group of other people were playing charades. And I picked not Spider-Man, but The Incredibles 3. And so I was Mr. Frozone in that moment. That was what was going on. I was shooting ice out of my palms, doing my best impression.
I mean, it's really funny that you were playing charades and nobody's been able to figure out.
Yeah. I've been waiting until this. I've been waiting. Now I'm just gonna say, you know what? That's the right time to talk about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Brendan, for joining us here.
Absolutely.
You were really great in the confessionals. I always appreciated your perspective on the game. So it was good talking to you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. I appreciate your support throughout the season. It's been a dream of mine to not only be covered on a show like this, but to even talk to you or to talk to Brent or to talk to anybody involved with RHAP. So this has been incredible. I'm so thankful for the experience, and I'm glad to say I know you now.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you all next time.